The night shift at Earth's Deep Space Listening Post was usually quiet. Most operators spent their time checking routine signals and drinking coffee to stay awake. But this night was different. Tom Miller sat up straight in his chair, his coffee forgotten as he stared at the strange pattern appearing on his screen. After 15 years of watching nothing but normal space noise and satellite signals, he knew this was something new. "Hey Bill, come take a look at this," he called to his supervisor, who was doing his usual midnight rounds. Bill walked over, his boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. He leaned over Tom's shoulder, squinting at the screen. The pattern kept repeating, a series of mathematical sequences that couldn't be natural. "Run it through the computer again," Bill ordered, now fully alert. "And call Dr. Smith from the math department." Within an hour, the quiet listening post had turned into a buzzing hub of activity. Dr. Smith, an older man with thick glasses and messy gray hair, stood in front of the main screen, drawing patterns in the air with his finger as he worked out the mathematics. "It's definitely artificial," he announced to the room. "But here's the interesting part. These numbers follow the same pattern as prime numbers, but with a base 12 system. No human made this." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. After decades of searching the stars, humanity had finally received its first alien signal. But this wasn't just any signal. As they continued to study it, they noticed it was getting stronger and more frequent. Dr. Smith's face grew more serious as he decoded more of the message. "It's a distress call," he said, pushing his glasses up his nose. "From what I can tell, there's a fleet of ships stuck at the edge of our solar system. Their main drive systems have failed." The news traveled fast. Within hours, the head of the United Earth Space Command was on the video screen, talking to the team. "Are you absolutely certain about this?" Admiral Rogers asked, his face stern. "Yes, sir," Dr. Smith replied. "The mathematics is clear. They're using universal constants to communicate. They're stuck in the Kuiper Belt, beyond Neptune's orbit. And," he paused, looking at his calculations again, "they're running out of time." The next few days were a blur of activity. The world's governments held emergency meetings. Scientists from every country worked together to decode more of the message. The public was informed, and surprisingly, there was more excitement than fear. Tom, who had first spotted the signal, found himself explaining the discovery to reporters. "It wasn't like in the movies," he told them. "No dramatic music, no scary messages, just math, the universal language." Finally, after a week of intense preparation, humanity sent their response. They used the same mathematical language the aliens had used, sending back prime numbers and basic equations to show they understood. The aliens' reply came quickly. Using their shared mathematical language, they explained their situation in more detail. They were refugees, millions of them, fleeing from their dying star system. Their fleet's advanced drive systems had suffered a catastrophic failure, leaving them stranded. Admiral Rogers made the final decision. "We're sending our best engineering vessel, the UES Problem Solver. If anyone can help them, it's Captain Walker and his crew." As the Problem Solver prepared for launch, Tom sat at his monitoring station, still watching the alien signals. They had started sending more detailed information about their ships and technology. Most of it was so advanced it made Earth's best technology look like children's toys. "How are we supposed to help them?" one of the younger operators asked. "Their technology is way beyond ours." Bill smiled, remembering all the times human ingenuity had overcome seemingly impossible challenges. "Sometimes," he said, "having simpler technology means you know how to fix things when they break. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways." As the Problem Solver launched into space, carrying Earth's best engineers and problem solvers, humanity held its breath. They were about to meet their first aliens, not as conquerors or victims, but as helpers. No one knew it yet, but this rescue mission would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. The UES Problem Solver moved slowly through the Kuiper Belt, its engines pushing against the endless dark of space. Captain James Walker stood on the bridge, watching as the alien fleet finally came into view through the main window. "My God," he whispered. The sight was beyond anything they had imagined. Hundreds of massive ships floated in the darkness, each one bigger than Earth's largest cities. Their silver hulls glowed faintly in the dim sunlight, covered in strange patterns that seemed to shift and change. But something was wrong. Many of the ships were dark, with only emergency lights blinking slowly. "Main fleet in visual range," announced Mike, the ship's pilot. "Getting readings now." "Those things are huge, Captain. The biggest one is about 30 kilometers long." The Problem Solver's crew of 50 engineers and specialists watched in amazement as they approached the nearest ship. Years of training hadn't prepared them for this moment. They were about to meet real aliens. A voice crackled over their radio, speaking in carefully practiced English. "Human vessel, this is Ambassador Gray of the Combined Fleet. We appreciate your response to our call." Captain Walker pressed the comm button. "Ambassador, this is Captain Walker. We're here to help. Can you tell us more about what happened?" The alien's voice carried a tone of embarrassment. "Our quantum drive cores experienced a cascade failure. The technology is, perhaps, too complex for your understanding. We need specialized parts from our homeworld, but it is too far." Engineer Kate Roberts listened from her station, frowning at the alien's tone. She had spent 20 years fixing everything from nuclear submarines to space stations. Complex or not, every machine followed basic rules of physics. The Problem Solver docked with the alien flagship, using an emergency airlock adapter they had built based on the alien's specifications. The human crew put on their spacesuits, not knowing if they could breathe the alien atmosphere. When the airlock opened, both sides got their first look at each other. The aliens were tall, with smooth gray skin and large eyes adapted to the dim light of their home system. They wore flowing robes covered in the same shifting patterns as their ships. Ambassador Gray met them personally, along with what seemed to be their engineering team. "Welcome aboard," the ambassador said, their voice now coming through directly rather than over radio. "Though I must warn you, our technology is far beyond your current level of development." Captain Walker nodded politely. "We understand. But we'd still like to take a look, if that's okay. Sometimes fresh eyes can help." The aliens led them to their engine room, a massive chamber filled with crystals and flowing energy patterns. Kate's eyes lit up as she looked around. Under all the fancy technology, she could see familiar principles at work. "Your quantum drive," she said, pointing to a large dark crystal. "It uses magnetic containment to hold the quantum field in place, right?" The aliens looked surprised. "Yes," one of their engineers answered. "But how did you know?" "The support structure," Kate explained. "Those coils around it, they're electromagnets. We use similar systems in our fusion reactors, just smaller." The alien engineers exchanged looks. They hadn't expected the humans to understand any of their technology. "The problem," Ambassador Gray explained, "is that the quantum matrix inside the crystals has collapsed. Without our homeworld's manufacturing facilities, we cannot replace them." Captain Walker watched as Kate walked around the engine room, looking at everything with careful eyes. He knew that look. She was seeing something the aliens had missed. "Maybe we don't need to replace them," she said slowly. "These crystals, they're just fancy containment vessels, right? For holding and directing quantum energy." The aliens nodded. "Well," Kate continued, "we might not be able to make quantum crystals, but we know a lot about containment fields and energy direction. Maybe we could build something different, something simpler, but good enough to get you where you need to go." Ambassador Gray looked doubtful. "You believe you can help us with simpler technology?" Captain Walker smiled. "Ambassador, if there's one thing humans are good at, it's finding simple solutions to complex problems. Give us a chance to try." The aliens looked at each other, then back at their dead engine. They had no other choice. "Very well," Ambassador Gray said. "Show us what humans can do." The alien flagship's main meeting room was filled with tension. 3 days had passed since the problem solver's arrival, and things weren't going well. Captain Walker sat at a large curved table with his engineering team, facing Ambassador Gray and the alien engineers. "With all respect," one of the alien engineers said, waving his long fingers at the humans' diagrams, "your technology is too basic. It would be like trying to fix a quantum computer with stone tools." Kate Roberts pushed her coffee cup aside and stood up. She walked to the holographic display showing the alien engine's design. "Look," she said, pointing to the power flow diagrams, "your system is more advanced than ours, but energy is still energy. The laws of physics don't change just because the technology gets fancier." Ambassador Gray's large eyes blinked slowly. "We appreciate your enthusiasm, but our ships carry 3 million refugees. We cannot risk their lives on primitive solutions." The room fell quiet. Through the meeting room's window, they could see other ships in the fleet, their emergency lights blinking weakly in the darkness. Time was running out. "How long?" Captain Walker asked. "How long until the life support systems start failing?" The ambassador's skin changed color slightly, showing what the humans had learned was stress. 3 months, perhaps less for the outer ships. Their backup power systems are already struggling. Bob, one of the older engineers from the problem solver, cleared his throat. "Ambassador, can I tell you a story? Back in 1970, Earth sent some astronauts to the moon. Something went wrong. An oxygen tank exploded. They were stuck in space with a dead ship and running out of air." The aliens leaned forward, interested despite themselves. "They didn't have fancy technology," Bob continued, "but they had human engineers on Earth who figured out how to filter their air using spare parts and duct tape. They made a square filter fit in a round hole using a sock and cardboard. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. Those astronauts came home alive." Kate jumped in. "That's what humans do. We fix things, we adapt, we find ways to make things work. Your technology is amazing, but right now it's not working. Let us try our way." Ambassador Gray stood up and walked to the window. The alien leader was quiet for a long moment, watching the fleet. "Our ship's systems are all connected," they finally said. "If your solution fails, it could damage all of them at once." "Then let us test it on one ship first," Captain Walker suggested. "The smallest scout ship you have. If it works there, we can scale it up." The alien engineers huddled together, speaking quickly in their own language. Finally, one of them turned to Kate. "Your plan to modify our containment fields. Explain it again." Kate brought up her diagrams on the display. "Your quantum drives use crystals to hold and direct quantum energy. We can't make those crystals, but we can make something similar using magnetic fields and plasma containment. It won't be as efficient, but it should create a stable field strong enough for basic propulsion." "And the power requirements?" another alien engineer asked. "We can hook it into your existing power grid. The system will be slower than your original drives, but it will work. Like putting a backup engine on a speedboat, it won't break any records, but it'll get you to shore." Ambassador Gray turned back to the group. "Our nearest allies are 2 years away at normal speed. Even with slower engines, could you get the fleet moving enough to reach them?" Kate did some quick calculations on her tablet. "With the modifications we're planning, yes, it won't be fast, but you'll get there. Better than being stuck here." The ambassador looked at each member of their engineering team, then at the humans. Making the wrong choice would doom millions of refugees, but making no choice would doom them just as surely. "Very well," Ambassador Gray said finally. "We will give you access to one scout ship. You have 2 weeks to prove your solution can work. After that, the outer ships will have to start shutting down systems to conserve power." Captain Walker stood and extended his hand to the ambassador. After a moment's hesitation, the alien leader reached out and took it. The real work was about to begin. The scout ship's engine room had become a strange mix of alien and human technology. Cables and pipes ran alongside crystal panels, and portable human computers sat next to alien control stations. After 10 days of non-stop work, Kate Roberts was tired but excited. "Hand me that plasma torch," she called out to Bob, who was helping her install the last magnetic coil. The small ship's engine room was cramped with both human and alien engineers working together. One of the alien engineers, who the humans now called Blue because of his slightly blue-tinted skin, watched with fascination as Kate welded the coil in place. "Your methods are unusual," he said, "but I begin to see the logic." Kate wiped sweat from her forehead and grinned. "Sometimes the best solutions are the simple ones. Look here." She pointed to where they had modified the engine's power flow. "We're using your power source, but controlling it our way, like putting a basic steering wheel on a sports car." The humans had discovered something interesting about the alien technology. It was incredibly advanced, but also very rigid. Everything was designed to work perfectly together, which meant when one part failed, the whole system failed. "It's like having a fancy computer," Bob explained to the aliens. "Great when it works, but when it breaks, you need an expert to fix it. Sometimes an old radio with basic parts is more useful, because anyone can fix it with simple tools." Captain Walker entered the engine room, followed by Ambassador Gray. "How's it looking?" the captain asked. Kate stood up from her work. "We're almost ready for the first test. We've replaced their quantum containment system with our magnetic field generators. It's not as elegant as their crystals, but it should hold the quantum energy long enough to create thrust." Ambassador Gray looked at the modified engine with concern. "And you believe this hybrid system will work?" "Only one way to find out," Kate said, moving to the control panel. "All the simulations look good. Time for a real test." Everyone moved back as Kate started the power-up sequence. The engine hummed to life, human and alien parts working together for the first time. Blue lights pulsed through the new magnetic coils, and the quantum energy flow meters began to rise. "Energy containment holding steady," Blue reported, watching his displays. "Field strength at 60% of normal, but stable." Kate watched her own readings carefully. Magnetic fields are good. Power flow is even. Ready to try a small thrust test. Captain Walker looked at Ambassador Gray, who nodded slowly. "Proceed," the alien leader said. Kate took a deep breath and pressed the controls. The engine's hum grew louder, and everyone felt a slight vibration through the floor. On the displays, numbers began climbing. "We have thrust," Blue announced, his skin rippling with excited colors. "It's working." The human engineers cheered, but Kate kept her eyes on the readings. "Power consumption is higher than we'd like," she said, "but it's within acceptable limits. We can work on efficiency once we know it's reliable." For the next hour, they ran the engine through various tests. It wasn't as powerful as the original alien drive, but it worked. The scout ship could move and maneuver using the hybrid system. Ambassador Gray spoke quietly to Captain Walker. "Your engineers have done what we thought impossible. They made our technology work in ways we never considered." Walker smiled. "That's what humans are good at. We might not have the most advanced technology, but we know how to adapt and improvise." The ambassador turned to address everyone in the engine room. "You have proven your concept works. But can this solution be scaled up for our larger ships? And can we build enough of these systems for the entire fleet?" Kate wiped her hands on a rag and grinned. "That's the best part. We designed it to use mostly your existing parts, just arranged differently. We'll need to manufacture some components, but the problem solver has fabrication facilities. We can do this." Blue had been studying the design specs. "With both our teams working together, we could modify all ships within 2 months." 2 months, Ambassador Gray said thoughtfully. "Just enough time." "Very well, let us begin." As the engine continued humming steadily behind them, humans and aliens began planning the massive task ahead. They had found a way forward, But the real challenge was just beginning. The Problem Solver's manufacturing bay was running at full capacity. Sparks flew as machines worked around the clock, creating the components needed for the fleet's new hybrid engines. After the successful test on the scout ship, work had begun immediately to scale up the solution. "It's like building a car factory in space," Bob joked as he supervised the production line. The humans had set up an efficient system, with both human and alien workers learning to work side by side. Kate walked through the bay, checking quality control. She stopped to watch as an alien fabricator merged human-design magnetic coils with alien crystal housings. "How's the latest batch looking?" she asked Blue, who had become their main liaison with the alien engineering team. "Better than expected," Blue replied, his skin showing pleased purple tones. "Your simple designs are proving very reliable. Though I still can't believe you're using copper coils alongside our quantum matrices." "Sometimes the old ways work best," Kate said, picking up one of the finished components. "Like using a wooden paddle to steer a modern boat when the electronic controls fail." The intercom crackled to life. "Engineering team to the bridge," Captain Walker's voice announced. "We have a situation." When Kate and Blue arrived at the bridge, they found Ambassador Gray looking worried. Several alien engineers were gathered around a display showing one of the outer fleet ships. "The Starlight's life support is failing faster than expected," the ambassador explained. "We estimate only 2 weeks of breathable atmosphere remaining. We need to get their new drive installed immediately." Captain Walker studied the situation. "We've only finished testing the components on medium-sized ships. The Starlight is one of your largest vessels." "Then we adapt," Kate said firmly. She turned to Blue. "If we redirect power from their secondary systems and use emergency protocols, we could install a temporary version of the drive. Not the final design, but enough to move them closer to the fleet's core, where they can share resources." The alien engineers looked skeptical, but Blue had learned to trust Kate's instincts. "It could work," he said. "We would need to modify the containment fields on the spot." "Like a bandage on a broken arm," Bob added. "Not a permanent fix, but it keeps things stable until we can do proper surgery." Ambassador Gray's large eyes blinked rapidly, showing concern. "The Starlight carries 50,000 refugees, including many children. We cannot risk." "With respect, Ambassador," Kate interrupted, "those people are already at risk. Sometimes you have to choose between a risky solution and no solution at all." The room fell quiet. Through the windows, they could see teams of workers in spacesuits moving between ships, carrying components and tools. Humans and aliens working together, racing against time. "Very well," the ambassador finally said. "But I want our best teams on this. No room for error." The next 12 hours were intense. Kate and Blue led a mixed team of human and alien engineers to the Starlight. They worked nonstop, modifying components on the spot and finding creative solutions to problems as they arose. "It's not pretty," Kate said as they finished the installation. "But it'll hold." The new drive was a strange combination of human industrial equipment and alien technology. Copper coils wrapped around crystal matrices, standard pipes carried exotic coolants, and human computer systems helped control alien power flows. Everyone held their breath as they started the power-up sequence. The engine rumbled, coughed like an old car, then settled into a steady hum. "Power flow stable," Blue reported. "Containment fields holding. We have thrust capability." A cheer went up from both human and alien workers. On the ship's bridge, the captain began the delicate process of moving the massive vessel closer to the fleet's center. "It's not elegant," Kate said to Ambassador Gray, who had come to watch the operation. "But sometimes elegant isn't what you need. Sometimes you just need something that works." The ambassador watched as the huge ship moved smoothly through space. "Perhaps," they said thoughtfully, "we have become too focused on perfection. We forgot that survival often requires adaptation." As the Starlight settled into its new position, Teams were already preparing to move to the next ship. They had proved the emergency solution worked. Now they just had to repeat it 30 more times in less than 2 months. The race against time continued, but now they knew they could win it. 6 weeks had passed since the Starlight's emergency repair. The combined human-alien teams had worked non-stop, modifying ship after ship, but time was running out for the outer vessels of the fleet. Status report, Captain Walker called out during the daily meeting on the Problem Solvers Bridge. The room's displays showed the positions of all fleet ships, with color codes indicating their condition. Kate looked tired but determined as she stood to report. We've completed modifications on 60% of the fleet. The good news is we're getting faster. What took us a week in the beginning now takes 2 days. The bad news, Blue added, his skin showing worried gray tones, is that 15 ships in the outer ring are reaching critical power levels. Their life support systems are failing. Ambassador Gray's expression was grim. How many people? About 100,000 refugees, Blue replied. We estimate 5 days before they lose atmospheric containment. The room fell silent. They had 5 days to save 100,000 lives. Bob spoke up from his station. What if we split into more teams? We've trained enough alien engineers on the new systems. We don't have enough parts, Kate interrupted. The Problem Solvers fabricators are running at maximum capacity. Captain Walker studied the fleet display. Then we need to think differently. Ambassador, could we temporarily evacuate the critical ships? The ambassadors shook their head. There isn't enough room on the other vessels. We're already at maximum safe capacity. Kate walked to the main display, looking at the pattern of ships. Suddenly, her eyes lit up. What if we don't fix all the ships at once? What if we create a chain? Everyone turned to look at her. Blue's skin rippled with curiosity. Explain. Kate pointed to the display. Look, each modified ship has more power than it needs right now. What if we run power cables between ships? Each working ship could support 2 or 3 others until we can fix them. Like jumper cables on a car, Bob added, catching on to the idea. We keep them all running while we finish the repairs. The alien engineers burst into rapid discussion. Blue turned to Kate, excited. It could work. We have emergency power coupling systems designed for exactly this kind of transfer. We never considered using them long-term, but humans specialize in making temporary solutions last. Captain Walker finished with a smile. They spent the next hour planning. The modified ships would form a support network, sharing power with their neighbors. It wasn't elegant, but it would keep everyone alive. Work began immediately. Space-suited teams stretched massive power cables between vessels, creating a web of energy transfer. Inside the ships, refugee families watched through windows as humans and aliens worked together to save them. Power flow established to Outer Ring Section 3, Blue reported 2 days later. Life support levels rising in all connected ships. Kate monitored the readings from her station. It's working. We're getting good power distribution through the network. This buys us at least 3 more weeks for the remaining repairs. Ambassador Gray moved through the Problem Solvers Bridge, watching the teams work. The alien leader had changed over the past weeks, learning to appreciate the human way of doing things. When we first called for help, the ambassador said to Captain Walker, we expected a technologically advanced race to answer. Instead, we got humans with their primitive technology and strange solutions. Walker waited, knowing there was more. We thought that was a disaster, the ambassador continued. Now I see it was exactly what we needed. Your people don't just fix machines. You find new ways to solve problems, ways we would never have considered. Through the window, they could see the fleet stretched out before them. Power cables created glowing lines between ships, like a giant spider web in space. It wasn't the perfect solution an advanced civilization might have designed. Instead, it was a very human solution. Practical, adaptable, and most importantly, it worked. 3 more weeks, Kate said, checking her calculations. 3 weeks to finish the modifications, and then we can start the journey to your new home." They had turned a race against time into a victory for cooperation. And they weren't finished yet. 2 months after the problem solver first arrived, the alien fleet prepared for departure. All ships had been successfully modified with the human-designed hybrid drives. The massive power cable network had been removed, and each vessel now ran on its own power. Kate stood at the problem solver's main window, watching as the last test sequences ran on the fleet's engines. Beside her, Blue checked readings on his tablet. "All ships reporting ready," he said, his skin glowing with happy blue patterns. "Power systems stable across the fleet. Your solution worked better than any of us expected." "Our solution," Kate corrected him. "We did this together. Human ingenuity and alien technology working as one." Captain Walker and Ambassador Gray entered the bridge. The ambassador's formal robes now included a small United Earth Space Command pin, a gift from the crew. "The fleet is ready for departure," the ambassador announced. "Thanks to humanity's help, our people will reach their new home. Different from how we planned, perhaps, but we will get there." "How long will the journey take with the hybrid drives?" Walker asked. Blue brought up a star chart. "About 3 years instead of our original 1-year estimate. But considering we were stranded and facing disaster, 3 years is a blessing." The bridge crew watched as the first ships began to move. One by one, the massive vessels fired up their engines, each one a unique combination of advanced alien technology and practical human engineering. The sight of the entire fleet in motion was breathtaking. "Before we depart," Ambassador Gray said, turning to Captain Walker, "we have a proposal for Earth. Our council has discussed this at length." The ambassador handed Walker a data crystal. "These are coordinates for emergency supply stations throughout known space. We would like to register Earth as an official emergency repair and assistance center. Any ship in distress would know they can find help here." Walker looked surprised. "But we're not as advanced as other species." "Exactly," the ambassador interrupted. "Your people have shown us that advanced technology isn't always the answer. Sometimes, simple solutions and creative thinking are more valuable than the most sophisticated systems." Kate smiled as she remembered how doubtful the aliens had been at first. Now they were recommending Earth to other species as a place to find help. "We've also included technical data," Blue added. "Information about various species technologies, but focused on basic principles. Not to advance your technology artificially, but to help you assist others as you helped us." "And there's more," the ambassador continued. "We've spread word about Earth through our communication networks. You'll likely be receiving visitors, other species interested in learning your unique approach to problem solving." Captain Walker looked at his crew, seeing pride in their faces. Humanity's first major contact with alien life hadn't been about war or trade or cultural exchange. It had been about helping others in need, using their own special skills. "It's time," Blue said softly, checking his instruments. The fleet was ready to depart. Ambassador Gray stepped forward and did something unusual. They extended their hand for a human handshake. "We came here as refugees in distress and found not just help, but friends. Earth will always have allies among our people." As the problem solver moved away from the fleet, they watched the massive ships activate their hybrid drives. One by one, the vessels disappeared into the darkness of space, heading toward their new home. "Send a message to Earth Command," Walker ordered. "Mission accomplished. All ships successfully modified and launched. But also tell them to prepare for company. I have a feeling Earth is about to become a very popular place." Kate looked at the data crystal they'd been given, thinking about the future. Humanity had stepped onto the galactic stage, not as conquerors or victims, but as problem solvers, as helpers, as the species that could make anything work with anything else. "You know what this means," she said to no one in particular. "Every broken-down alien ship that comes here will be different. Every problem will need a new solution." Bob grinned from his station. "Sounds like fun." In the distance, the last ships of the refugee fleet winked out of sight, carrying with them stories of the humans who had saved them. The species that proved simple solutions often solved the biggest problems. Earth's new role in the galaxy had begun.